Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Playing the blame game as students return to school.
The school districts are the employers.
Why no one is taking responsibility for the ongoing teacher shortage in BC. Plus, costing you even more to buy. The average price of a Greater Vancouver home hits an all-time high. But is it quite as dire in the rest of the province? And the battle to bring people back to the office.
We're missing the ability for people to connect, to solve problems faster.
Quality of my life had improved so much over the last 3 years of remote work.
And the pushback from employees turning elsewhere.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. As students head back to school this week, there are still a lot of questions as to how a provincial teacher shortage is going to be fixed. Janella Hamilton is looking at the scale of the problem and why no one is willing to take responsibility.
It's an issue in many districts across BC.
19 high school jobs are open. I have, I believe, 6 K1 classrooms that without a permanent teacher at this point.
That's in Prince George, a district Beauregard says has dozens of uncertified teachers on call.
I could tell you that roughly speaking, the North does the worst at recruitment and retention. And our geography is a big factor in that. And cost of living isn't exactly cheap up here anymore either.
The shortage is hurting bigger districts too, like the largest in the province, Surrey, where schools are doing whatever they can to fill the gaps.
If they're not able to get somebody off of the spare board, a teacher on call, then they have to pull internally. So the first places that they pull from are learner support teachers, are librarians, music teachers. And so what happens to those kids that require the additional supports? They no longer get the supports.
The province has added more than 250 teacher training seats in universities and is considering recognizing internationally trained teachers to help alleviate the labor shortage. But the BC Teachers Federation says the issue is a lot bigger.
The view of teaching as a profession, I would suggest, has gone down over years. The compensation, the pay for teachers in terms of cost of living, so in terms of comparing to what your actual cost of living is, has not kept up in almost all jurisdictions at all. And the demands of the job, there is more and more and more being asked to be done with less and less and less resources.
It's tough to know how bad the shortage is overall, so Johnston is calling on the province to release the numbers, just like Quebec did. But the province is pushing back.
The school districts are the employers. They know they are the ones making decisions about the staffing and the resources in a school district and in a particular school. So it is the school districts who would have these numbers.
Some districts do track, but not all.
We got to make sure that staying in British Columbia and joining our public school system here is an attractive situation for recent graduates or people moving to this province. We can't afford to lose any more teachers. And I think if the province isn't collecting that data, for the whole province, they're missing that point and they're not seeing where the trends are.
The concern is without the overall numbers, moving forward and finding a solution will be a challenge, one that may not be solved for years to come. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And summer's end is bringing a renewed push to limit work from home. Apple, Google, Amazon, and other large firms here in BC are now requiring employees to show up at the office for part of the week. But as Anita Bathe reports, it remains to be seen whether workers will head back or seek new opportunities.
This Vancouver office looks like a ghost town. The boss says it's time for that to change.
We're missing the ability for people to connect, to solve problems faster, to run into each other.
Starting next week, he's implementing Together Tuesdays, one day when all staff must be in the office.
Being together at some point over some period of time is valuable and important to an organization.
The pandemic forced a lot of workers to clock in from home, but more than 3 years later, many are still avoiding the office. Now some companies are taking a stricter tone, saying showing up in person is mandatory.
You have to be on site. You have to be on site. We need you on site.
With a young son in school, Shama Kumar found going into the office 5 days a week too stressful. So she quit and found a new job offering hybrid work.
When I realized that this company doesn't really meet my needs, my family needs, I had to make the change.
Although the job market is a little cooler these days, experts say workers have options and will exercise that power.
Once employees have had an opportunity for work from home, they're going to continue to expect to be allowed to do that in the future.
Still, businesses from JP Morgan to Meta are ordering staff back to their desks. Even Zoom, the video call company that's the face of remote work, is moving to a hybrid model. Amazon workers are protesting similar mandates, but the tech giant is upping the stakes, hinting that those who don't show up may find themselves out of a job.
The issue is that's not a good way to manage your employees, because your best people could be the ones who leave.
Amanda Nilsson left an employer that wanted her to return in person. She says she's more productive at home, and it allows her time to exercise, travel, and take on new hobbies.
The quality of my life had improved so much over the last 3 years of remote work that I wasn't ready to give that up.
So companies pushing for workers to come into the office should prepare for workers to push back.
Shoulder shrug.
Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, it's been a long time since home prices in the region have been, well, let's say affordable, but a new record has been set in the Greater Vancouver area for the selling price of detached houses. Our Justin McElroy is here with the numbers. So, Justin, just how high is it?
Yeah, Anita, in the Greater Vancouver region, we get these new numbers for every month. We long since passed $1 million for the average selling price of a detached home in the region. We long passed $2 million in the region, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. But today, if you take a look at this chart, well, we got all the way up to $2.4 million on average for the average detached home in the region. If you zoom in there, you can see 2.4 for a detached home, 1.2 for a townhome, $805,000 for a condo. And you can see those lower regions not going up quite as much, but you can see a big spike in the last 6 months for detached homes. Now, folks might be thinking we've seen all of those interest rate hikes over the past year and a half. How is that not stopping this increase for an average price? But experts we spoke to today says that's freezing out the lower end of people who might otherwise be thinking of getting into the market and leaving one group left that can afford to get in.
The amount of buyers, the amount of qualified buyers is very limited at the moment with these restrictive interest rates. Who you're seeing that's still active in the buying pool, it's largely end users. It's couples that have previously owned real estate and they're now selling and upsizing or selling and downsizing. And so what we're seeing is that they're taking out a lot of equity from those sales and putting it towards the new home.
Okay, so that's happening in Greater Vancouver, Justin, for detached homes, but that's not the full picture of the market. What is?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. When you look at it in Greater Vancouver, those detached homes, those numbers are still spiking upwards with people reinvesting. But when you look elsewhere in the Lower Mainland, it's a slightly different story as well as Southwest BC. Here's another chart showing the year-over-year changes in the selling price for all sorts of homes, both in Greater Vancouver, the Fraser Valley, and in Greater Victoria. And if we zoom in here, we can see that high number, 18% increase in the average selling price for Greater Vancouver homes. But then you look everywhere else, it's much lower. A lot of them around the rate of inflation as well. Greater Victoria townhomes have actually gone down in the average selling price. Greater Vancouver condos just up 1.5% in the last year. So it certainly is a mixed bag over the last 12 months for selling prices, but certainly we know that the rental market has shot up. And again, for the most expensive homes in the most expensive parts of British Columbia, it seems the sky's the limit.
Justin McElroy, thank you. A city in northern BC is seeing some new unwelcome visitors, black bears. It's gotten to the point where the RCMP has asked people to stop calling in those bear sightings. Lindsay Duncombe explains what seems to be causing these close encounters.
This sanctuary for orphaned bear cubs is expecting a busy year.
It's going to get really bad. The need will be humongous.
Cubs here have been abandoned by their mothers, attacked by dogs, even caught in wildfire. This female is recovering from burned paws.
So whether it's a fire or the drought that's driving them out doesn't really make any difference. But for us, it means that province-wide, bears are in trouble.
There's 3 of them. They're climbing the tree.
Biologists don't know exactly what's happening to northern BC's black bear population, but in Prince George, many are coming closer to humans. It could be because their habitat has burned or because drought has dried up their food sources.
We're in kind of an unprecedented time here, and we're we're just run off our feet, essentially.
RCMP have told people to stop calling unless a bear is being aggressive.
If people are in danger, then we'll respond rapidly. But other than that, we just kind of have to let these animals live their lives. We're in their territory as much as they're in ours.
In August, conservation officers put down 36 bears for safety reasons. Compare that to last year, when no bears were killed.
Anytime that people are interacting with bears, it just increases the possibility or the percentage of bears who may end up getting killed because of those interactions. They're distinctive. They have distinctive
Advocates say protect the bears by getting rid of any food. Pick fruit trees, clean up garbage. There are still weeks until hibernation. Close encounters are expected to continue. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's back to school for thousands of students in the central Okanagan School District after a summer defined by wildfires. While all of that district's schools open their doors today, 6 are still on evacuation alert because of the ongoing fire risk, something officials say is impacting students.
We will have, of course, some students who have been impacted by the wildfire and they'll have experienced trauma on evacuation orders, etc. And we have some extra support at some of those schools where we know the communities have been most impacted, particularly where there's been, homes lost. In particular, for those schools still on alert, they have their plans in place. They'll review them with staff. We'll have buses nearby and available to pick up students and then transport them to our muster point.
And evacuation orders in BC's Shuswap region are lifting as the wildfire situation calms there. The regional district says orders tied to the Bush Creek East wildfire will drop to alerts tomorrow, making way for evacuees to return home later this week. In the Okanagan, the McDougall Creek wildfire remains out of control and alerts remain in place for West Kelowna and West Bank First Nation. Evacuation alerts have been rescinded for properties in Lake Country and the city of Kelowna. 430 fires are still burning in the province. This is as the number of wildfire crews are about to lose some bodies as many staff members leave to return to school.
And so we have seen a bit of a decrease in BC Wildfire Service personnel, as well as some contract crews, just given the typical age for folks that are on the fire line.
She says the service is still supported by more than 500 out-of-province personnel. All right, time to check in with Darius Madavi, who is, of course, following the fire situation closely. What are we looking at today, Darius?
We are seeing that conditions are drying up, especially in the south. Temperatures have come down somewhat in the north as the sort of cooler and unsettled conditions have spread further northward. So we've seen that come down since last week. But in the south, we're seeing some small increases just as we see less rain in these areas than we did at the end of last week. But good news for the north, especially because we saw those gusty winds over the weekend. We saw a major jump in fire activity. So, sort of a mixed bag in terms of what we're looking at across the province. In the last 24 hours, we did see some rain happening in the south and the central parts of the province, but really it's been drying up for the most part, and that trend is going to continue. We've seen these cool temperatures for a while now, especially in the south. So 25 is below seasonal for the summer, but around where we're heading into in the fall. These are probably some pretty normal temperatures. Tomorrow we climb a little bit more in the south as we see a ridge of high pressure start to build across the province. So we see temperatures come up a little bit here, and then it'll spread up through the province over the next couple days, meaning temperatures coming up somewhat to probably the mid-20s for most of the south, around 20 on the coast, and around the low to mid-20s further north as well. So expect a real drying trend throughout the province over the next few days. In Vancouver for tonight, we're not looking at anything too serious. We're just seeing a bit of cloud as we see those sort of clearing mostly happen tomorrow in the afternoon. But in the meantime, some very nice temperatures to head into fall.
Awesome. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, the province is putting $3 million toward the YMCA's Why Mind and Mind Medicine program. It helps teens in 30 communities across BC.
We have global instability, we have an affordability crisis. People are dealing with a lot right now. And of course, kids are experiencing all of that as well.
The free 7-week program teaches youth strategies to manage stress and anxiety. Sessions are led by trained mental health professionals. Interested youth can connect YMCA BC to register without a referral. A First Nations community in BC is reclaiming the land where a residential school once was. The St. Joseph's Mission Residential School operated for 90 years before it was shut down in 1981. The residential school site is being bought by the Williams Lake First Nation from the province. The First Nation says the site would be permanently protected for historical and investigative purposes, and they will work with former students, families, and communities on a long-term vision and plan to protect and commemorate the site. Okay, the numbers for this year's P&E attendance are in. The fair wrapped yesterday. Organizers say it drew more than 626,000 guests. That's up by 100,000 people from last year. Now, this year's numbers are the highest since the start of the pandemic, but they do fall short of pre-COVID numbers. In 2019, more than 730,000 guests attended the fair. And the year before that, 2018, 705,000 people passed through those gates. The rise in demand seen by one local charity helping vulnerable new moms, why more people are needing breast pumps, and the difficulty in meeting the numbers. Our live interview is coming up. Thousands of residents who were forced from their homes in the Kelowna area have been returning to their homes over the past week. We are looking at our commercial-free live stream content tonight and the devastation that some people are finding. Others are feeling relief that their homes are still standing. As Tom Popick reports, one community showed us its gratitude through a social media video to thank the first responders who fought off the fire.
We're going home! We're going home!
Family after family in Kelowna's Wilder neighborhood.
And we couldn't be more grateful for all your dedication.
Thanking firefighters for their service in this social media video.
Heroes!
7 of the longest days of my life.
Chrissy Zach collected the messages and doorbell camera video of the wildfire emergency. The residents just north of Kelowna watched this week-long response unfold in real time. From police knocking on doors and forcing evacuation to firefighters staging on the streets, the developments were posted on group chats. Residents shared the stress.
That is the fire coming down the hill.
And support.
You know, at first, a lot of what we were seeing was very scary. Firefighters just working hard, fighting literal fires in our yard. And then as things started to lighten a bit and they would do checks through our yard and they would wave at us through our door cams and they knew that we were watching them. And it makes me emotional even to think about now because it gave us hope.
189 structures were lost in this disaster. Wilden on the east side of Okanagan Lake was spared. Even in hardest-hit West Kelowna, there are signs the community is returning to normal. The McDougall Creek fire is still burning out of control, but in western wilderness, only 505 properties remain under evacuation order. The Evacuation Registration Center has been replaced by a new resiliency office set up to help residents navigate the recovery and rebuilding process. But mental health workers warn trauma can linger for years.
Wherever you are in the world, when there is a major incident like this, that you need to be mindful of how you're doing, not just in the moment, but going forward. And I mean, we're going to be around if more support's needed.
As the region moves into recovery, more and more signs of thanks and support are popping up. Some selling Kelowna Strong stickers to help those who lost homes. Others, like Chrissy and her neighbors, now fundraising for firefighter charities.
People have the same reaction we all do, which is tears and just gratitude.
The hope to turn trauma into thanks.
Thank you. You saved our house. You saved our house. Thank you, firefighter.
Tom Popick, CBC News, Kelowna.
The stress for parents preparing to go back to school is hopefully starting to wrap up with the first day today, starting for many kids. But for moms of little ones, there's something else that's a cause for concern. A BC charity supplying baby gear for vulnerable moms says it has seen a massive increase in demand in the last year for breast pumps specifically, and it's having to turn more people in need away. From January to August of 2022, Baby Go Round had 50 breast pump referrals and turned away 8 people. For the same time this year, the charity had 85 referrals and had to turn away 32 people. For more on this, Executive Director of Baby Go Round, Megan Neufeld, is live with us tonight. Megan, your charity has seen a 70% increase in demand for breast pumps. Why are more women struggling to get these devices?
So I think that there's a few reasons for that. First was the shortage of infant formula that started in 2022 when one of the plants that was making it got shut down. And then it increased the price of infant formula drastically over the course of the last year, which we're still seeing as an issue, but then it has made it where people are trying that much harder to try and breastfeed. They're trying other alternatives. And so the breast pump has become a go-to, but the cost of a breast pump has also increased.
How much are we talking here? How much has infant formula gone up? How much have breast pumps gone up? And really, how much of that is falling on charities like yours?
Sure. So formula has gone up about 20%. But to put that into context, for the average family currently needing to formula feed a baby, they're looking at $400 to $800 a month to feed that baby. And infants have a very limited diet, so you don't have a lot of other options. With the breast pumps, they can range. It depends on if it's manual or electronic. When we buy breast pumps, we are spending about $160 per unit for an electric pump, and that's about as cheap as we can find them. And for a low-income family, that's just not obtainable.
You've had to turn away 32 moms so far this year. The year's not over. How hard is it for those moms to find alternatives? What options are there?
It's very hard. And so what we've had to do is we go back to the agencies that are referring them to us, and we do our best to either try and connect them with a lactation consultant, or, maybe it is a food bank that might have access to formula. While we have a limited supply of formula, it's not something we get a lot of, so it's not something we're able to give families. So those are the two main things, is trying to continue with the breast pump or breast feeding journey through a lactation consultant, or finding another nonprofit who is struggling just as we are.
Really quickly here, what do you think the government needs to do to help alleviate infant food insecurity?
Sure. So Canada actually has an action plan for food securities, where infant feeding was identified as a concern, and breastfeeding was a key strategy in that. But more needs to be done, because not everybody can breastfeed. So if you can't breastfeed, what are your alternatives? And this means, from the government's perspective, helping organizations such as ourselves or a food bank with funding and resources so that we aren't having to turn these families away. But also, for us, it's up to you and to me and everyone who's watching right now to help the moms in your community who are struggling without the gear that they need to safely care for their babies and feed their babies. And so we ask that, you look to an organization such as Baby Go Round if you're in a position to help and give.
Megan Neufeld is the Executive Director of Baby Go Round, a local charity helping vulnerable mothers with gear. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Hospitals in Calgary have been flooded with sick kids after an E. coli outbreak at daycares. Why so many are so sick and who's to blame? It's next.
Something like that. When we bought those other ones, it's brown ones as well. These are nice. I like them.
They have been haunting the clothes stores, hunting for the look. The baggy jeans, designer t-shirts, and shoes that mean business. How often do they shop?
3 times this week. Yeah. 3 times this week? Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Because you have to have it.
Because if you don't wear the name brand clothes or the right pair of shoes, then you're a geek or a nerd or something. And you're not part of the in crowd.
It's something Charlie's been warned about.
They're way too big for me.
He starts high school tomorrow. Today, he's shopping with his older sister.
I used to wear just like track pants and stuff, but now it looks like I'm going to be wearing jeans and Docs all day.
Docs at more than $100 a pair. Sweatshirts at $50. These kids are spending upwards of $300.
How much time do you spend in the morning thinking about what you're going to wear?
I don't think that much. I know a few people that spend an hour or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Guys?
Yeah, guys.
How much time every day do you spend dressing yourself?
About an hour, hour and a half.
And you?
But at the same time, doing my hair and stuff. And
but why? Why does it take so long?
Because you have to make it perfect.
You go to school, like public school, and you wear something the same time, you know, twice that same week. People know. And they let you know that they know.
For some schools and some students, this is the answer. The uniform that does just what the name implies.
Well, it does help when you don't have to choose what clothes you wear in the morning.
But that just doesn't wash with the kids who live in blue denim rather than gray flannel.
If you wear a uniform, you'll look like exactly every other kid. So if you wear different clothes, and you have some sort of distinction.
It could be a preoccupation that's not really necessary.
Defenders of the uniform say they don't want their students concentrating on clothes.
There are many other ways in which we try to encourage students to express themselves, and it could be by membership in bands, by good work in art or in drama, by participation in debating. And these are all constructive ways of bringing out values of quality.
But the public school kids say their preoccupation with clothes doesn't hurt their education.
Not going to just sit there and not focus on what the teacher's saying because someone beside you is wearing a nice outfit.
It's just the way society is today, you know.
For all the teens, it's a matter of fitting in, of being part of a group and being accepted.
It's just a statement, I guess, you know.
Cecilia Walters, CBC News, Vancouver.
An E. coli outbreak at several of Calgary's daycares has sent at least 50 children to hospital. As Carolyn Dunn tells us, it's left parents demanding answers.
For days, Sarah McDonald has been keeping watch over her 4-year-old son in hospital. Lachlan is one of dozens of children who have tested positive for a strain of E. coli infection that is making them very ill.
This diarrhea was so intense, it's like nothing I've ever seen, and I knew something was really, really wrong. He just said, "Mommy, why can't you help me?" And this broke my heart. You know, I found myself, you know, on the floor of my bathroom just praying, "Somebody help me."
Public health officials believe the shared kitchen servicing 6 Fueling Brains daycare centers and 5 other facilities is the source of the infection. Parents have been told all children and staff will be tested for E. coli, and the daycares have been closed. In a statement to the Canadian press, Fueling Brain said it would be deep cleaning its facilities. Its vice president, Lois Garcia, said her deepest concerns and empathy are with everyone impacted by the outbreak. More than 50 young children from those daycares have been flooding Calgary emergency rooms since late last week, some as young as 2 years old.
Sometimes there's an E. coli that circulates that's called Shiga toxin producing E. coli, often referred to as STEC. Now, this is a problem.
Lab tests show they were positive for Shiga toxin, a bacteria that is found in undercooked or raw meat, some vegetables, and unpasteurized milk and juice. Those infected suffer from bloody stool, severe diarrhea, and other gastrointestinal issues. There's also a danger of even more serious complications.
So they can develop kidney failure, anemia, so their red blood cells can break down, and they can actually have other complications such as seizures as well that can occur in the 5 to 10 days after the onset of symptoms.
Now, in addition to looking after her son, Sarah McDonald is waiting.
We just want answers. You know, these are our children, and they are really suffering.
That's Carolyn Den reporting in Calgary tonight. Well, two of the main organizers behind the trucker convoy that snarled downtown Ottawa last winter are now standing trial. As Rafi Boudjikanian reports, the Crown's labeling today of the protest as an occupation is being hotly debated by the defense.
Tamara Leach's entrance far quieter than the events that made her famous in Ottawa.
Hold the line! Hold the line! Freedom!
Leach and Chris Barber each accused of mischief, intimidation, and obstruction-related charges after they helped organize the 3-week trucker convoy that shut down parts of the national capital in the middle of winter last year. Ostensibly, it aimed to end pandemic-related public health restrictions, though some demonstrators also sought to topple the federal government. Police largely watched until the feds implemented the Emergencies Act, granting them extra powers like freezing financial assets and towing vehicles. Leach and Barber were both arrested at that time. The accused sat in court today as the prosecution called those 3 weeks last year an occupation. Leach had no opinion about that.
What do you think of the use of the word occupation by the Crown?
I think I'm just going to have a cigarette.
But her lawyer had thoughts.
When there are Ukrainians under real occupation, it's an insult to them and anybody else who's survived an occupation.
Some observers say there may be more than semantics at play in the defense's rejection of that term.
If you're talking about an illegal occupation, you're basically starting from the get-go that anything that you might say would be construed as encouraging people to carry on with illegal activity within an illegal occupation.
The trial is expected to last just a little over 2 weeks. The Crown intending to call at least 22 witnesses to the stand, including former Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, as well as some of the downtown residents who sought a court injunction against the truckers' bullhorns last year. The defense arguing the latter voices are unnecessary for the matter in question. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The trial is now underway for the man accused of deliberately running down a Muslim family in London, Ontario in June of 2021. As the CBC's Chris Ensing reports, he has pleaded not guilty to multiple murder charges.
The accused stood before potential jurors today wearing black dress pants and an untucked dress shirt. Nathaniel Veltman did not speak as the justice read out the charges. 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder. He pleaded not guilty through his lawyers. He's on trial for the murder of 4 members of the Afzal family. Just over 2 years ago, the Afzals were out for an evening stroll near their home when they were struck and killed by a person driving a pickup truck. 15-year-old Yumna Afzal, her parents, Medea Salman and Salman Afzal, and the family matriarch, Talat Afzal, were killed. Police arrested Nathaniel Veltman in a parking lot nearby. Thousands marched and rallied in support of the Afzal family and to denounce Islamophobia. A judge moved the trial to Windsor from London, the reasoning covered by a publication ban. The trial will be broadcast to a London courthouse, allowing people to watch. As a jury was selected inside, outside, members of the National Canadian Council of Muslims called for justice.
Ultimately, we are looking for justice for our London family and for our community to feel protected, to feel safe, and to know that our justice system will do what is necessary to deter this from ever happening again. This moment must be a catalyst for change so that all of us in this country feel safe just doing ordinary things in our communities.
The NCCM has called for more effort from the federal and provincial governments to combat Islamophobia and commit to promises made following the attack in London. Those calls echoed by the organization Canadians United Against Hate.
What we have called for repeatedly, both before and after this incident occurred, was for the federal government to undertake a nationally coordinated anti-hate strategy, coordinating with the provinces.
I'm going to be thinking about my kids for sure.
Here in Windsor, this organizer, who spoke at the annual walks to honor the Afzaal family, is bracing for a trial that may be re-traumatizing.
Really important to stay vigilant and to check on your Muslim neighbors or Muslim friends maybe, because a lot of feelings will be coming back with the trial being in Windsor as well.
Opening arguments are expected to start next week. Lawyers say that this trial could last 3 months. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
I'll take Canadian Jeopardy contestants for $200. We get a daily double of Justin McElroy today. Why he's been hanging out with some of the smartest folks around. Next. Every year, around 100,000 people try to get on the famed quiz show Jeopardy. Only a few hundred actually succeed. But in the last 18 months, 3 of those people were from Metro Vancouver. And that gave one of our reporters an idea to find out their secrets. Who is Justin McElroy?
It's Wednesday night in an Irish pub on the edge of downtown Vancouver. Dozens of people are coming through these doors to play pub trivia, but 3 of them aren't your typical contestants.
A musician and educator from North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Caitlin Payne. A communications manager from New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada, Chelsea Watt. A graphic designer from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Tessa Matsuzaki.
And a municipal affairs reporter from Vancouver, me. With 3 recent Jeopardy contestants by my side, I would surely eclipse my greatest trivia triumph of finishing in 3rd place in the 2005 Provincial Reach for the Top Championships.
American president studied that.
Caitlin.
Who is Maggie Smith?
That's right.
Turns out, when you're a Canadian about to go on arguably the most famous U.S. quiz show, the approach is pretty similar.
There are things that come up on Jeopardy that are just not my thing. I'm bad at fine art. I am not good at college sports. So I'm like, those are a lost cause. We're done. We can't do those. Yes. But I'm like, I can get better at the presidents. I can get better at the state capitals.
For question 1, Alert Bay, BC is home to the world's tallest one, which is...
But it's not just about what you know. It's about how fast you can buzz in.
So, did you try and do any, buzzer testing at home beforehand?
I sometimes played with it. Yeah, I should have.
They always say that's the secret.
It's the buzzer for sure. It's so hard.
They tell you to use a clicky pen.
And even if you master the buzzer,
So you're going to add to that just 2,000.
you still have to master the wagering as well.
My daughter constantly to this day keeps going, but Mom, technically you won because you're the only one who got Final Jeopardy right. I'm like, yeah, but doesn't matter because I didn't do basic addition correctly. It's hard. You have to do it on paper with a pen. It's not. They don't give you a calculator.
In the end, none of them won, but all came away with an experience they'll never forget.
Do you feel now after this, you're part of a community?
Way more than I ever expected. Yeah.
I think it's a shared experience because we joke a lot about it being, we're trauma bonded. Because ultimately, everyone loses.
Everyone who makes it to the stage is good enough to be on the stage. It was a blast. It was. I had a great time. It was so fun. It's crazy to say that I was on Jeopardy.
Yeah.
But do I still think about it every day? And yes, I do. Yes, I do.
As for our team, the thing about pub trivia is about 40% of the points in some places are given out.
All right, folks, it is time for the music round.
And there were some songs that, well...
Oh, no. I look around at this table and yeah, this is us, you guys. He just said knick-knack, paddywhack, which is give the dog a buff. Would that be the...
As a result...
And now the division between second and first was astonishing, folks. It is 1 point between second and first tonight. So coming in second with 49 points, it is 3 queens.
An ending our team was able to take in stride. After all, like they said, everyone loses eventually. And I got my 3rd place result upgraded to a 2nd. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
They didn't win. I think they needed a Darius Madavi on their team.
I don't think I would have been able to help, but I do have a trivia question for you because I do a fun fact for radio every day, so I thought we might give it a go. You can ignore the big words, but my question is, mushrooms are here under fungi. Mm-hmm. Do you think mushrooms are more related to animals like you or plants like a tree?
I feel like it's got to be animals because a tree is way too obvious.
That is correct. It is sort of a tricky question, but yes, mushrooms are more related to animals than they are to plants, which is crazy because they seem much more similar than we are. I feel, not very much like a mushroom. But let's go on to weather. It looks like we're going to have a bit more rain through the central parts of the province tomorrow and a little bit into Thursday. For the most part, the only place we're going to keep seeing rain beyond that heading into the end of this week is on the coast. So the north and central coast could still see quite a bit of rain heading into as late as Thursday and Friday. But for the most part, we're going to be drying up across the province. We have a new ridge of high pressure building from the south and moving its way up the province over the next couple days. So expect some drier weather in the days ahead. We're also going to see some clearing, especially in the south, so expect some clouds and not much smoke, which is good news for the south because we might have some proper blue skies throughout the south of the province over the next few days. Meanwhile, up north, we've got some much more severe widespread smoke, so we do have to be on the lookout for that because settled conditions do mean some more smoke sitting in place. But on the coast, we are looking pretty clear, so some good news there, except for some parts of the island. Meanwhile, if we look at our temperatures and conditions for tomorrow, we can see that sort of clearing trend. Still a little bit of rain in some places, but generally speaking, just some cloud. And as we head into later this week on Thursday, we'll see that real clearing. And we can see that here in our forecast. Just a bit of cloud tomorrow for Vancouver, and then we really clear up. And it's not until Sunday we have a small chance of rain return, but we'll have to keep an eye on that because we're still a while away from figuring out just what will happen this weekend.
Not bad, though. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, it's a vast criminal network that sees cars from Canada wind up all the way in Africa. David Common helps track one man's car to a lot in Ghana, breaks down how this car theft network operates, and is giving us some tips on what you can do to foil those thieves.
There we go. Here's an ownership. North York, Ontario.
We're in West Africa.
Yep, what could I see? There's the original Quebec license plate.
Every one of these vehicles ripped off and shipped out.
All right. This is stolen from?
Canada.
From Canada?
Yes.
Ending up sold abroad in places like Ghana.
And how many Canadian cars have you seized that are just in this lot?
For the 2 months, I think we've seized more than 40 cars.
There are clues to the original owners, from stickers to a snow brush.
Oh, even better. Canadian flag.
And in one car, a phone number for the original owner, Len Green of Toronto.
I'm gonna phone him. Might be too early for a phone call, or maybe looking at a number they don't recognize.
Hello?
Hi, is that Leonard?
Yeah.
Leonard, this is going to sound like a really weird call. My name is David Common. I'm calling from CBC News. We're doing an investigation into stolen vehicles, and I'm pretty sure I'm sitting in your once stolen vehicle in West Africa. Yeah, I'm in West Africa.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind if I FaceTime you?
I don't mind at all.
Does this look like your car?
That's it. It was stolen September, October of last year.
And what happened?
So we were going out that day in the morning. My wife went out to get in the car, and it wasn't in the driveway. When we checked the camera, the video from the camera from the Ring doorbell, at about 3 in the morning, you see a car and 2 guys pull up towards the driveway. And about 4 minutes later, the light goes off. They're gone. The car's gone from the driveway.
I know this is probably not the call you expected today, but your ownership is still in the glove box. Here's your car. There's a car that still has a New Jersey license plate on it. There's a car stolen from North York over there.
I can't believe it. And my documents and everything are still in there.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Crazy indeed, but Len is hardly alone.
Eastbound 47, about 190, 200.
Auto theft in Canada has never been this bad. High-speed chases, home invasions, violent carjackings, but rarely do the bad guys get caught. Last year, they stole 27,000 cars from the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area alone, one every 17 minutes.
A large portion of them are actually leaving the country. You'll see about 80% of them going out through the ports.
Detective Mark Haywood of Peel Regional Police is one of Canada's foremost specialists on theft for export.
Much easier to sell 15 cars on the black market than it is to sell 15 keys of cocaine or 15 illegal guns. And they're seeing that profitability.
Just how big? Deputy Chief Nick Milinovich.
Last year in 2022, there was over $1 billion worth of vehicles that were stolen across Canada. And it's now one of the top 3 funders of organized crime. So
it's big business, big profit for them.
Huge, huge.
This was the spot it was stolen from?
In Oakville, Ontario.
It was parked right here. We arrived home from
Greg and Lynn Gannett became just the latest of their neighbors to be targeted.
We walked outside and the car was not there.
They just drove it away, basically. Like it was amazing actually how quickly they were able to steal it.
So smoothly, the thieves only barely triggered this motion capture camera. When police arrived, they told them the car's gone forever.
It's probably already on its way to Montreal, going to Africa or some other foreign country.
Yeah.
After a steal, thieves move cars quickly to shipping containers where GPS tracking is muffled, then placed on tractor trailers or rail lines to the Port of Montreal.
What countries are those cars ending up in?
Several. We're seeing a lot of them go to the UAE, to Dubai. There's Nigeria is a hotbed for that. Ghana is another place that they're showing up in.
It's scary and increasingly violent. But we've come to Greg and Lynn because of a stunning discovery.
We think we found your car.
Wow.
We believe we've found your car located in the West African nation of Ghana.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And it's for sale.
Oh, well, isn't that interesting?
So here's the next thing. We're gonna actually try to see your car.
Oh, wow.
We're gonna go to Ghana.
Excellent.
It is a long journey into a world full of snatched cars.
This vehicle reported stolen in Ontario, stolen from Saint Laurent, Quebec. Ottawa, Ontario. In 2023, this vehicle, stolen in Ontario.
Cars seized by Ghana's Economic and Organized Crime Office.
We are doing all that we can to ensure that at least, if not to eradicate all, we can actually bring it to the barest minimum.
Alex Lindsay runs surveillance for the office. Even he admits all this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I think the Canadian courts need to be more proactive in trying to stop it before even it gets down here.
Okay, this is wild. We're just driving along through traffic. There's a car with a Quebec license plate on the road in front of the organized crime authorities, just driving along.
That car bails from traffic, quite possibly a new arrival. Just take a look as we slow drive past all the used car dealers.
Is it very likely these vehicles we're seeing are stolen?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, Lexus, Honda, Dodge Rams, Toyota, some of the most stolen vehicles in Canada now here for sale openly. Even law enforcement has to be careful.
They have issued threats to officers that the next time probably we come to retrieve cars, they are going to fight.
So we have to be very careful driving
So we
by.
have to be very careful.
Back at headquarters, we sit down with the office's deputy director.
We do encounter some few resistance.
Abdoulaye Bashirou Dapila tells us how they know which vehicles to seize based on intelligence from the FBI.
So the situation we have with respect to these vehicles is such that, yes, we are collaborating with the FBI. The FBI has given us evidence that the vehicles were stolen from Canada and then the United States.
Dapila says he needs Canada to step up to stop the flow in the first place.
It sounds to me like Canadian law enforcement, in your mind, could be doing a lot more.
Yes, no Canadian agency except through the FBI has approached us directly or made a formal complaint to us directly.
We've tracked Lynn and Greg's car to this lot in Ghana, and we're going looking for it.
We understand that there was a vehicle that was reported stolen from Canada that ended up at this dealership, at this lot.
Hey. The workers get agitated quickly.
Do you sell stolen vehicles here?
But the lot is full of the most stolen vehicle types in Canada.
Do you mind if I look at the VIN numbers and just see?
They push back and approach our camera operator.
Why are you taking pictures of
I was filming my journalist.
No, you don't have the right to take the pictures here.
Because, like, if I look at this Acura, like, this is the kind of damage that happens when they put them in shipping containers when they're stolen. So do you mind if I look at the VIN?
We've been warned this is risky, so we head out to call up Lynn and Greg.
Kind of suspicious. Okay, we have been to the dealership that your car was last seen at. And guess what? It's not there anymore. It appears they may have sold it.
It's incredible to us that you are where you are at the lot where you tracked us from the car from Ontario across the world to Ghana.
Next, we go inside the fight to stop cars from being stolen.
We've just retrieved one of those vehicles back from them. We've caused the disruption, and that's the goal.
55 years old and still going strong. The fresh sounds from a legendary band. We'll preview the Rolling Stones' new album next.
Oxy, Whiskey A Go-Go.
Dave Stewart flips through photos of the recent trip he took with his husband to Los Angeles. The two didn't hesitate to book a trip to California, but Stewart says trips to some other states are out of the question.
When I look at going to the States, I want to know that I'm going to be welcome somewhere. I also want to know that I'm going to a state that is not a discriminatory state. Florida's out.
Some states, including Florida, have passed multiple laws in recent months aimed at the LGBTQ community, criminalizing activities like drag shows and limiting transgender access to washrooms and participation in sporting events.
And the safety.
It's now prompted the Canadian government to update its travel advisory for the U.S., warning that some states have enacted laws and policies that may affect 2S LGBTQI+ persons, and to check relevant state and local laws. This Charlottetown trans advocate says it's unfortunate it's come to this, but that the advisory is necessary.
I wouldn't cross the border. That's where I'm at. These states are not safe for trans people. So to see the government start to take that seriously is a big, hopefully a big indicator that there's going to be some movement on trying to stop some of this LGBTQ hate that is spilling over, but also protecting Canadians abroad.
Some maritime travel agents say concerns around gun violence was already having an impact on bookings to the U.S. They expect this will too.
My clients right now are not booking to the U.S. That's the thing. They are going to other destinations. It's a safety concern. I really do believe that people need to be really mindful of where they want to go, what they want to do, and make themselves aware of the safety measures that are involved.
Stewart says for him it's partly about safety, but also his principles. He wants to spend his travel dollars in places that are welcoming to all. He hopes that others, even those not part of the LGBTQ community, take the same approach.
I'm hoping this is sending a big message saying you may want to rethink what you're doing. The pink dollar is mighty and speaks, loudly, and hopefully this is going to have an impact on certain places.
Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
September is Literacy Month.
Have fun and support the cause by joining CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at Dakota's Team Trivia Challenge on September 27th. For tickets, register at dakota.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
The Rolling Stones are getting set to release their first studio album in 18 years. It's called Hackney Diamonds, and details will come tomorrow in a YouTube live stream from London. It's going to feature an interview with Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood by late-night talk show host Jimmy Fallon. The new release comes out 55 years after their massive hit Jumpin' Jack Flash topped the charts. The Stones' last studio album, A Bigger Bang, was released in 2005. This will be the band's first album since the death of drummer Charlie Watts. He died 2 years ago at the age of 80. Yeah, really looking forward to this announcement tomorrow. Big Rolling Stones fan, love their music. Hope the new album is just as good as their greats. We'll see what happens. All right, thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.